What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Movement Mindset powered by Station Athletics. I'm Chris Hardenberg here with Joe Pasalacqua. And today we're going to be talking about something that, frankly, you and I have been talking about for years at this point, which is franchising. So for us guys, franchising is really not an option for us right now. It's not something we have any interest in doing. We tried it years ago and it
We tried in different variations too.
did not work.
We did partnerships, we did franchise, like full franchises, and it's just a waste.
Yeah.
We'll kind of get into this. Will be a little bit longer.
Yeah,
sure.
this will be a little bit longer.
This is a little touchy subject for me,
Sure.
too, and why the direction of what we're doing now is what it is because of all of these reasons, and we have a lot of math to explain why
Sure.
this doesn't work. So, for me, let's just like kind of roll with this.
Okay.
I look at the fitness industry as a whole, okay? And there's not a lot of franchise micro gyms.
Sure.
Right? Really, the big players are F45 and Orange Theory.
Yeah.
Okay. F45 is publicly traded. Orange Theory is still technically privately owned.
Still privately
But
owned.
we'll get to that in a second
Yep.
on the structure of that. Okay. The biggest problem of why I think that there's not more of it is because there's not big margins in the gym business.
Right.
Okay. It's, in our opinion, it's difficult to scale.
Yeah.
Because typically how businesses grow quickly is by big infusions of cash.
Right.
Okay. So if someone came to us and said, here's $20 million, we could probably go national with $20 million.
Right.
But that's not the case. Okay. One, because we're not willing to do it, and because we're still developing our corporate structure to be able to handle something like that.
Sure.
So there's a couple places locally that do, there's Alpha Fit, New Jersey, that has, I believe the owner only owns one actual location.
Yeah,
I think in Westfield.
And there's
I think
I think there's somewhere between 10 and 15 locations.
Yeah, something like that. There's a lot coming soon,
Sure.
but it's all franchises.
All franchises.
And I know that he sold all of his New Jersey districts out to franchises.
Yeah.
Okay. So how a franchise works is it's an influx of cash. I go and I sell my brand. You can use my brand. Here's my playbook. This is what you have to use.
Yeah.
Okay. And in exchange for that, you're going to pay me $50,000 up front, hypothetically, and I'm going to take 5% of your gross sales
Yes.
for the life expectancy of you being open. Okay. So if you're doing, $10,000 a month, I'm taking $500 from you, right? Just like really simple math. Right. So that can work if you're providing guidance and direction for your franchisees, right? So you have a couple problems here. You either can't support them because you don't have a good corporate or franchise structure in this scenario, or the franchisee don't fucking listen to you.
Right.
And that's basically what happened with us. Franchisee did not listen to us. Partners did not listen to us. So we walked away from them.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why it didn't work for us was because, you and I talked about this. It's like, okay, if you are going to be a company that is starting a franchise, and again, to piggyback off of what you said, why a company would franchise is because it is a way to grow fast.
It's quick cash.
Yeah, it's a way to grow fast. The game changes though, because now my sales strategy goes from corporately okay, selling memberships, providing service, to selling franchises. I sell a franchise, I give you the playbook. I don't care what you do because I'm making 5% no matter what.
Well, because there's not a model of, I don't want to say there's not a model. There's a model to do both. There's not enough money to do both.
Right.
So that's why you tend to see, like, I see advertisings every day for F45, become the next franchise owner of this company. And I would never want to, because if you read the fucking numbers, it's horrendous.
Yes.
Right. And what these clubs are doing. Same thing with Orange Theory, right? And we know industry standard that these places have really bad churn, right? So attrition's really bad. So why would I go into that business knowing that, like, the life expectancy of clients from a massive company is 2 months?
Yeah.
Right? Like, we know this because we're in this business and we have numbers to kind of compare them to.
Right.
And in my opinion, we do things a whole lot better than these places do. Okay?
Agreed.
The difference is franchise allows you to grow really, really fast. So it does two things for you, right? You get a huge influx of cash and it gives you brand recognition as fast as you want it to be.
Yes.
Okay. Which drives people to the gym. It's like what we're starting to get, right? When we put the sign up in Summit in a week, people know, they're like starting to know what it is.
Yeah.
Because we have 8 locations.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, we've started to run some coming soon ads, and we've gotten some leads to come in, and they're like, oh, you guys are opening in Summit. Like, that question alone says you have an awareness of our brand.
Exactly. So let's take F45. They're international.
Yes.
Right? They're worldwide.
They're probably the biggest.
They definitely are.
fitness franchise in the world right now.
Absolutely. They're the biggest. They're not worth the most.
Well, yes.
Okay. So there's a very, very fine line of understanding that. And the reason why they're not worth it is because they don't fucking own anything. They just have their franchisees that are supposed to be paying them or paying them small amounts of money. Okay. So let's kind of dive into the numbers with them first. The reason why that I think their business model is awful is because of this. Okay. 2021, they went public, $1.4 billion IPO. Okay?
Massive.
It was the biggest gym IPO literally in history.
Yeah.
Because they had a lot of big players throw cash in. Mark
Yeah.
Wahlberg, right? Like you had some players go into this. They raised, I believe it was like $260 million and they went public.
Okay.
For $1.4 billion. Right? Within a 2-year period, the company fucking dropped to $12 million valuation.
Yeah.
It's 100x decrease in value.
Yes.
Over 100x. In only 2 years that happened.
Yeah. And then they got delisted.
And you get delisted. So if you don't own those stocks, like if a company goes IPO and they drop below $40 million in value, they give you a certain amount of time and then you get delisted to what's referred to as penny stock.
Right.
It's still tradable. Like I think I just looked before. It's trading at 33 cents a share. Okay. There was yesterday only 10,000 shares were traded the whole day.
Sure.
Really, really low volume because it's a penny stock. So like you're not getting the influx of like the hedge funds that are infusing money into it.
Sure.
In my opinion, this company did what they're going to do and they're just going to continue to go down and somebody's going to chew them up and buy them. That's what's going to happen. Opinion. Okay. Whether that happens soon or in a couple of years is what's going to happen. But my point being, why did this massive company that had the biggest gym IPO in history, internationally, national brand recognition, go to shit? Right? Why did that happen? And the only thing I can think of is they were so concerned about selling franchises that they lost sight of, oh, I actually need to help the franchisees be successful.
Yes. Yes. Because at the end of the day, right, you're building your company off of helping people get fitness success. And like you mentioned, and like I mentioned, again, when you franchise, the game shifts from selling memberships and providing value to selling franchises. And so corporately, the owners, the founders, the investors make money when you sell franchises. And so again,
because it's an influx of cash.
Yes.
So your P&L increases, so it shows more value.
Yes.
So when they sold the entire United States of F45, they had a massive influx of cash, but then they have all these locations that are just not making any money.
Well, and that's the thing is like why a franchisee would be interested is for the branding, right? So you said, hey, you get to slap our logo on there. You get a playbook of how you're supposed to run the gym. But you don't, and this has been corroborated. This is not us making this up. We've talked to people who have been a part of F45 in varying capacities.
Just pause for a second. The reason why that Chris is talking about this is because we have high level talent now that's applying for jobs for us. It's become so easy to get applicants for high level positions now because you have these people jumping ship from what he's about to say, from all these companies because of the horrible experience they're having.
Yeah, because basically, and you know, there are a handful of people in particular from F45s that said you really don't get the support to grow the gym. And so it's like it's still on the franchisees to figure a lot of this stuff out, which is it's part of the reason why you sign up with a company as a franchisee is because you're supposed to get a playbook.
They pitch it to you.
Yes.
They pitch it to you. We have the best of everything and we're going to help you grow and this. But then when you really look at it is they don't fucking teach you how to do any marketing.
Right.
They don't teach you anything outside of this is how a class operates. Okay, but everything else you pay them to do. But what if it doesn't benefit your area?
Right.
What if their paid ads don't work in this area?
Yeah.
And they just keep running
SOL.
So you just keep spending your money into trash.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And then that's why you see the valuation of the company go down is because you have these investment firms that maybe specialize in brick and mortar. They buy up these franchises that are this company that's growing fast. They infuse all this cash, which boosts the valuation. The company goes public. Well, what do these people want to do? They want to make money. So they yank their shares out. They make a ton of money. And then everything tanks because there's not a foundation of the service to continue to keep the revenue growing, to keep the valuation.
Well, that's why companies go public, for an infusion of cash. to grow at a really rapid pace,
Yeah.
or to be able to finally cash out.
Right. And
Right?
then,
Like Lifetime Fitness just did it. They just went public, but Lifetime Fitness went public, but they're all privately owned
yes.
clubs. That's why you see a gym like that continue to succeed.
Yes.
One, because I think their business model is amazing. We
Right.
talk about it all the time, but it's like they're continuingly, they're growing and growing and growing because they kept it privately owned.
Right. And it's the same thing with like a company like Orange Theory. And for those of you that don't know, when we look to branch out and build our brand, like those are some of the main competitors we look at. You know, the single location gyms is not really as much of what we look at. But for Orange Theory, like a great example is like they've had roughly 1,500 locations nationwide. So they recently had a merger, and I'm not going to get too in depth, but recently had a merger with a company that's like a parent company of a couple other gym brands, Bar Method, Anytime Fitness. So that's like their thing, is like some of those gym brands. So they had a merger. Prior to that, 20% of their locations were owned by 3 hedge funds, or I'm sorry, 3 investment groups. And I would venture, if I did a little bit more research, I would say a very large percentage of their locations are owned by an investment group. It's not like you that's like, okay, I'm going to open a location. And why that's interesting is because, again, if I'm in an investment group, a hedge fund, your job is to inject cash for an eventual exit. That's how these things make money. And so as a company like Orange Theory, yeah, it's great because it helps you grow fast. But what happens when these investment groups or this hedge fund yanks the carpet out, pulls their money out, and your valuation goes like this? How do you survive when you don't have people who are business, like gym business people, who can advance and push the product forward?
Well, that's typically it. Once you go public on these companies, that's typically it on like cash infusions. Because if you tank like that, nobody's coming in and saying, hey, let's regrow this.
Right.
Because let's be real. They have 1,700 locations worldwide. Okay. You're telling me that this company doesn't make money? 1,700 locations. So just to give everyone an idea, when we look at infrastructure of growth and targets, we target anywhere from 30 to 40% margin, right?
Yeah.
On a monthly basis.
Sure.
Is what we kind of target.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have a location, let's just say a location that's doing, well, let's just use really round numbers. Okay? Let's just say you have $1 million in cash.
Yep.
That means that we're looking for $300,000 roughly in profit.
Sure.
Okay. And that's pretty industry standard. Right?
I mean, if you're running things well,
if you're running things well, it's pretty industry
even
standard.
10%, even 10%.
Well, gyms aren't doing, most of these locations are not doing 100. They're doing 500, 300,000, right? Micro gym business is like a target point is like $300,000 to $500,000 a month.
Yes.
Okay. So let's just like retroactively think of it as like, okay, if every location is making $100,000 a year, okay, and you got 1,700 locations worldwide, yeah, you should be worth billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's an obvious structure issue. Okay. So that's the same thing. Is like, so let's kind of backtrack, right? Like that's F45's model. And now Orange Theory's model is a little bit different, right? What you just talked about. They're still privately owned, but they're owned by private investment groups, most of these places, and hedge funds.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the world of small businesses, this is kind of what's happening now. I see it in the dental space a lot, veterinarian space. I see it in the med spa space.
Yeah.
Small boutique locations that are pumping, anywhere from $1 to $8 million a year. They're getting bought up by hedge funds and investment groups, okay, for 8 to 12x EBITDA, all right? So after expenses, their EBITDA, right? So these places are getting $20, $25 million to be bought out,
Right.
okay? Because that's where they're flowing them into places that have maybe 1 or 2 locations. Or what you're seeing a lot in the medical space is you're seeing these places just acquire other locations and creating one bigger brand.
Right.
Okay. Orange Theory didn't really do that, right? So Orange Theory had these hedge funds and they had these investment groups that are opening up 5, 10, 15, 20 locations each to kind of slingshot them in the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay. In my opinion, it's still not privately owned because you still have a board of people that may not know the fitness space.
Sure.
Right. They may know the business space, but there's like a component of this business that like you like have to kind of keep outside of like just strictly P&Ls and numbers.
Right. Right. And that's something where like to go to what our thought process is, right? And why we don't want to franchise. There's a couple main reasons. One is, again, like we kind of tried it, and where we fall short is where some of these other companies don't, is like you have to be one of two things, either okay with with a bunch of your franchisees struggling because they're not really strong business people and you're just going to take 5% anyways,
Yeah.
which we were not good at. A lot of what you tried to do was like, okay, I want to help this location be set up for success. So, while they're ramping, I'm not going to take my
It was in the
cut.
franchise. There was like, I think it was like 6 months of no fees.
Yes.
I think that's what it was.
And so it was like, because we want these people to have success. Whereas you got to be a little ruthless in the franchise model for the corporate structure to survive. You just got to take the fees no matter
And
what.
my thing is, and I don't like that model, right? Because it's like you want the locations to be successful. So like, here's a great example. When we open a new location, me, out of my pocket, I float all the bills roughly for about 6 months.
Yes.
So that's typically, listen, and as the gym's ramping, there's more cash.
Yeah.
But like Westfield, I'm probably one more month away where I have to infuse cash into it just to cover like the rent and payroll because everything is fully staffed from day one.
Yeah.
Right. But I've been doing that since August.
Yeah. And you kind of have to do that when you open a new gym.
Yeah, but the reason of that is, and that's why our budgets for the gyms are X, because I'm anticipating having to do that because I want the location to be successful. So when we looked at the franchise model, it's like, okay, yeah, we can do this. Right? But there was basically 3 major problems with the franchise. One, we didn't have a corporate structure that could handle doing what you just said.
Right.
Being ruthless in the scenario of like, no, you're going to do what we say. Otherwise, we're going to pull the franchise.
Well, that's what the other thing I was about to say is like these people will take the franchise away sometimes.
They will. And I know a lot of people in the med spa space, and I know some people that they just take, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we did.
Right.
We just took the location away. I didn't want to.
After 3 years
After
of it floundering.
4.
Yeah.
They were open for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. So like we ended up pulling it at the end because I just put my foot down. I'm like, we're not doing this anymore.
Right.
This is what it is. Disservice to my brand. You're wrecking my brand. Right. So now this is what's going to happen. But I should have done that 4 years ago.
Right.
Right. From basic things of not following instruction. Right. And now that gym's on its way to being super busy.
Well, and those big companies they're not afraid to do that.
They're not doing that. Right. So let's go back to that. So step 1 was not having the structure to be able to handle franchises.
Right.
Okay. Just because you tell them to do something does not mean that they're going to do it.
Right.
If you've seen that movie, the Founders. So that guy was opening franchises and then realized that like he's owning all these franchisees and he was selling them to the wrong people.
Yeah.
Right. That was like step 1. Right. He stayed away from people he knew, friends and family, people that like think that they know already.
Right.
Okay. The other problem that I have with franchises is typically when you open a franchise in the gym business, let's say hypothetically without any fees, a gym is going to cost you anywhere from 100 and 150 grand to open.
Sure.
Roughly. And that's including floating the bills for about 6 months.
Okay.
Right. So when you look at and break down just those basic numbers, I mean, people in the fitness business, they don't fucking have $150,000.
Right.
You don't have a personal trainer that has $150,000
just floating around.
Right. Like that just doesn't happen. So 99% of the time, the people that are going into these businesses are made money from something else.
Yes.
Great example is I know someone that knows 2 Alpha Fits, right? And she's a lawyer, a big time corporate lawyer. And that's how she funded the 2 locations.
Sure.
Her and her partner in the gym business are both attorneys, I believe.
Okay.
Right. So that's just like an example of how that flows. So you get people that have made money doing something else that fell in love with X because they took class and they liked it. They're like, oh, this is and then they pitch you a business opportunity. Okay, cool. That does not mean that you know how to run a fitness studio. And just understanding numbers, right? Like I'm going to say all these numbers now and I don't even care. I know that those gyms, they need like 200 plus members to break even.
Right.
That's what they advertise.
Right.
Our break even's like 75.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what location either because the pricing is tiered.
Yes.
In Sparta, the break even is the same as Westfield and Summit.
Right.
And Hoboken and Jersey City, it doesn't matter because we're starting in a different tier.
Yeah, because the area demands different pricing.
But that's my point is I can't charge the same in Sparta and Denville that we charge in Ledgewood or
or if we went to New York City.
I went to New York City, the prices are going to be way higher.
Right.
Because of price per square foot.
Right.
Right. So you can't have a generic franchise thing and like roll that out and expect it to work everywhere. Okay. So, and I know a lot of these people are very unhappy. Okay. And you're going to eventually see them self-implode because they're like, I'm going to look for outside marketing help and I'm going to do this. And then it's going to be, then there's the whole grievance of, well, why do I even have this brand? Why do I do this? It's kind of what happened to CrossFit.
I was just about to say
it's literally what happened to CrossFit.
CrossFit's not a franchise, it's an affiliate model. And so it's different because they tell you,
it's a license.
Right. They tell you off the bat, you're getting no support from us.
Yeah.
All you get is slap our name on there.
Yep.
And for, 10, 15 years ago, slapping the name on the building was enough.
Basically, if you, from 2011
Yeah.
to about 2017,
Yes.
if you just had the affiliate as CrossFit, whatever, people walk.
People just like they just lined up and marched right in.
Dude, I remember when I went to CrossFit 908 when I first started,
Yeah.
2012.
Okay.
Right around then. It was the only gym.
Yeah.
So like by default, they were packed.
Yeah. Packed.
Charge whatever you wanted because it was packed. They had a really good service.
Yeah.
His way,
For sure.
they have a great service.
They do a great
and they do a great job, right? They continue to progress.
Yes.
Right? Because they're doing a lot of things right.
Right.
Okay. But like all these other gyms are dead.
Yeah.
That popped up that came out of all these other gyms.
Yeah. And it's because like once that goes away, it's like, oh, I have to learn the business side. But again,
that was the downfall. And CrossFit, it's funny. Austin Malleolo talks about this now.
Okay.
So he's been empowered. If you watch some of his CrossFit HQ stuff right now.
Yeah.
So now what CrossFit's trying to do, they're basically trying to backtrack the last decade and now trying to give the affiliate support.
Right.
It's too fucking late.
Yeah.
Your business is done.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to grow it outside of what it is because the stigma is CrossFit is really like, okay, great health and wellness and all these things. People know CrossFit for the CrossFit Games.
Sure.
That's really what it is. There's really no clear separation.
Sure.
There's people that are really, really good at fitness. And then there's, okay, great, come in and do weight loss. But it's up to the individual to decide how good their program is
Right.
at the end of the day. Because you can't backtrack support like that.
Yeah. And it becomes a survival of the fittest model, which is kind of what they wanted. But again, to backtrack to more of what we're talking about. So we mentioned that why we struggled with franchising was one, we weren't willing to be ruthless enough to take fees anyways, and then take franchises away immediately when they didn't listen to us. And then the second reason is because, I mean, I'll just say it, like you and me as well now is like, we have so much pride in our brand and what it represents. And for you, being that you started the company, it's probably even higher. It's like what I offer to these people is a direct reflection on me.
I mean, dude, people think I'm a psychopath. I walk through the gyms and I just make a list of shit.
Yeah.
Because it's not acceptable to me.
Right.
Like dumb things. Why is this out? Why is this?
Right.
This looks like shit. This needs to be painted. Just like dumb, stupid, minuscule things.
Yeah.
Because it's my brand.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you just said.
And my thing is like, when we went to franchise, it was our way to be like, okay, how do we grow?
Don't cut corners.
Right.
And that's a problem with the franchise businesses. Like there's a lot of corners that get cut.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was going to say is like, we wanted to grow. And so that's why we started that route. But then we slowly realized that it's like, oh, well, if some of these locations don't follow our playbook, and then we're not hiring the franchisees, they're paying us. And so it's like, it's not like I could go fire them if they don't do their job. And so then you run into a situation where, again, if you have a location that cuts corners or just freelances and does what they want and they flounder, now that's a direct reflection onto your brand. And they say, oh yeah, Station Athletics, they stink. I don't want to go there anymore.
That's what's happening to these brands.
Right.
Right. People are like, I got bored after 2 months, but that's a direct reflection of your input and how you're getting people to stay involved in the business.
Yeah.
I know we got sidetracked. So like I was talking about those three things.
Yeah.
Okay. First thing that I talked about was the actual structure of being able to support them.
Sure.
The franchise, right? We couldn't support the franchise model, nor did we really want to, because we didn't want to do what you just said. Like
Sure.
we didn't want to pull locations. We didn't want to be dicks about stuff.
Yeah.
Right. The second piece is what you just said.
Yeah.
Right. The second piece that you just said is being able to get the franchisees to basically just listen to the instruction. There's very little control.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. There's that. And then the third piece, there's not enough cash if you're doing franchises slow to be able to like continue the growth pattern.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and that's really like the problem that I always had with that is really those three things.
Well, yeah. And then at the end of the day, and this is kind of, I think, a good thing to wrap up on is like, again, I've mentioned it a couple of times now, but the game moves away from actually helping people to selling franchises. And so for us, it's like, we want our brand to stand for something. That's why we always mention like results-driven progress, results-driven program is like our hallmark. It's because at the end of the day, it's about the clients coming in. And if you really want to make it about the clients coming in and you're okay with growing slower and more sustainably than some of these franchise models, you're going to be able to have a bigger impact like some of these bigger box brands like an Equinox or a Lifetime. But for us, it's like, I think we can have a more direct relationship to the people and affect them more is like, okay, it's still about the members. It's still about how do we get people results? How do we provide as much value as possible instead of just selling franchises to
Well, and
people?
listen, and at the end of the day, there's like in business, and I'm a firm believer of this, is like, what's the exit?
Yeah.
There's always has to be an exit. If you're not thinking about an exit, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Right.
Okay. And that doesn't mean that you want to sell anything right now, but you should be like, okay, this is what I want to get to. And this, my goal in my head is I want to grow to X locations.
Yeah.
And we're going to do that
Right.
with or without people that are involved now or in the future.
Sure.
Okay. And then it's going from, okay, now what do we do? And for me, it's being like, okay, cool. Now do we take a huge cash infusion because we operate so perfectly and we're privately owned and we make all the choices and all the decisions and we have our subcategories and we have all the right people? And then do you take a $20, $30 million cash infusion at the points? But guess what? You're in the driver's seat at that point.
That's exactly it.
You don't have people waving money because you're like, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, and that's where the franchise model kind of like deviates, because it's like, we need this money in to be able to do the growth expansion.
Yeah. And so guys, I know that was super businessy. So hopefully for business. So hopefully we didn't lose you too much, but at the end of the day, we wanted to kind of talk about a little bit of where we're going, kind of how we see things and why we've opted not to do something like franchising. So yeah, guys, we appreciate you listening to us. We appreciate you tuning into all our podcasts. As always, please give us a 5-star review on all the podcast platforms you listen on. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube or Instagram, and we'll see you at the gym.
Peace.